You are listening to the Southwestern American Choral Directors Association Connections podcast, where we will interview choral directors, leaders, and movers and shakers within our region. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Wall. We hope you enjoy these conversations. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel for future content. Hi, everybody. Glad to bring you another episode today with Dr. Jennifer Sengin. She serves on the choral faculty at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where she leads the graduate choral conducting program and conducts the flagship ensemble, the Conservatory Singers, and the Choral Union. In addition to these ensembles, Dr. Sengin teaches graduate choral conducting and choral literature, an active guest conductor and clinician, adjudicator, presenter, has conducted honor choirs throughout the country, and recently conducted the 2024 South Carolina ACDA TTB honor choir and the 2023 Texas All-State Treble Choir, and some other regional honor choirs. She has some future engagements coming up, one being with Dr. Sandra Snow at Carnegie Hall with national concerts. She was also part of ACDA's International Conductor Exchange Program to Germany, and sings with the award-winning professional ensemble Mirabai, with degrees from the College of New Jersey, Ithaca College, and Michigan State University. Today, I'm really glad to bring you this conversation with Dr. Jen Sengin. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Jen Sengin, and we're here for another episode, and really glad to bring this to you and to let you get to know Dr. Sengin a little bit better. And so we'll get started. So welcome to the pod. Thanks for joining me. And maybe you can first tell us a little bit about your backstory, your musical upbringing, what you do in the world.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. It's so good to be here with you. I am currently at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, UMKC, where I lead the graduate program and conduct the flagship ensemble Conservatory Singers and the Choral Union, which is a community choir and a combination community choir student ensemble, and teach grad choral lit and grad conducting. And I love that experience. I'm in my second year here. And before that, I taught in Georgia at Georgia State University, and I was there for 5 years teaching grad students. Loved that experience. I did my doctorate at Michigan State University, where I really embraced the I'm a Spartan sports ball thing. Love that. And now that I'm in Kansas City, I'm go Chiefs. Sorry if that offends anybody, but that's where I'm at, and that's who I'm supporting. And I had a great time there. And before that, I taught high school choir in New Jersey, which is where I'm originally from. And I loved that experience as well. And I did my master's at Ithaca College and my undergrad in music education at the College of New Jersey. And so I've been sort of all over the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Midwest. And yeah, I've really enjoyed my time in all of those places. And it's one of the things that I love about our field in general is that, um, we get to build community and make music in lots of different contexts and meet different people. And yeah, it's really joyful work. It's hard work. We all know, especially, those of us who have, um, jobs where we're, teaching new singers and high-level singers and also multiple jobs. I know that that's, the land that we, live and work in, and also play in and get to be artists. And so anyway, I just basically love all things choral music and being in community with folks.
Yeah, for sure. And now, Jen, tell us a little bit about what your role is for Southwestern ACDA, what you're most looking forward to there.
Fabulous. So I'm so excited about going to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've only been there one other time, and not with a huge community of choral folks who are really excited about choral music. So I know it's going to be awesome. I am the R&R chair for youth and student activities. And so I'm going to be engaged in helping recruit for interest sessions, engaging with our college student population, especially creating some opportunities there, getting the word out, connecting with student chapters, and then also working with our national leadership too in the area of R&R for youth and student activities, so that we can be engaging across our region. And I'll also be working with our state chapters as well to encourage, youth and student participation in a variety of different offerings that we're going to have. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so we both kind of quickly came on this Zoom call in a mad dash from other meetings and activities. So if you don't have something for these next few questions, that's okay. This first one is a piece of music, and it doesn't have to be choral music, but a piece of music that best embodies your personality. And you can say pass if you need to.
Yeah, I don't think I have any one particular piece. I listen to a wide array of music. Um, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't know how to narrow that down to one. I feel like that things like that depend on like the mood that you're in and how you're feeling in a particular moment. And um, yeah, I think that's how music speaks to me anyway. It's like one day, you feel like, oh, that, I'm really like identifying with this, pop tune, or like weeping over something that's like a ballad, or thinking about something that you're preparing with the choirs and how you're going to interpret the text and getting all. I think in general, I gravitate toward music that's really expressive, but not any like one particular genre or style, or yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah, so I'll skip this next question too about your desert island choral piece because it is very hard. It's one of the hardest questions that everybody lambasts me for whenever we get on these meetings. Is like, what? I can't narrow it down to a single desert island choral piece. Um,
Actually, that you say that, one piece that I really, really love is, well, one piece. That's a million pieces. I'm a choral conductor. I love lots of music. But one piece that I love, love, love is the Brahms Requiem. And I so appreciate that it's different than other requiems from the time and from earlier times. I appreciate that he picked his own text. That fourth movement is just stunning. And there's so many in the whole work. There's so many different character changes and compositional techniques and ways that he expresses the text. And it's also one of those pieces that like you just could combust with energy from the people around you making music, from the orchestra and the choirs and all of that. So I think that's one that came to me off the top of my head, for those reasons.
Yeah, and that's a great choice too, because my last interview also, chose that as one of the desert island choral pieces, and I mentioned then as well that I did it last semester with the two piano version, with my chorus, and it changes every time that I do that work, or every time that I sing that work, or every time that I encounter that work, because one time it may be this movement that's my favorite, and then the next would be a different movement. So you find something new every time, and I love that. So great choice. Do you have a particular philosophy of programming when you're putting something together? And it can be for your own choirs or it can be for like an honor choir.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think across the board, I think about programming um, in a variety of ways. Typically, I find a piece or two that it just speaks to me, and um, that I'm really excited about, and then I try to build a program around that. And in all contexts, I look at selecting repertoire that is varied, um, language, style, tempo, lots of contrast, varied technical skills, so that in every ensemble that I'm working with, there are lots of different emotive aspects, and technical challenges. One of the things that I learned, when my first couple of years teaching high school, when I thought like, oh, I want to do these pieces that I just love, which is great. But sometimes I was just having a conversation with somebody about this, especially in your first few years, tend to program on the harder side, or can program on the harder side. And I remember, a local choir director saying to me at the time, like, Jen, they can sing this music, but maybe not every piece has to be hard. And so I thought, well, that's wise. Um, so I also make sure that in every program that I do, either at home or out in the world with, honor choirs, etc., that there's at least one piece that is just stunningly beautiful, that has long lines, that maybe is not so difficult, that's sort of a relief to sing for the singers and for the audience. That it requires the singers to just be expressive. And so I always think about that, and then contrasting that with, some repertoire that's really challenging, but I'm really judicious about making sure that there's a wide array of difficulty levels, voicings, ranges. I think especially for folks who are going on to be professional singers, choir directors, et cetera, preparing our 21st century music educators, we really have to look at culturally diverse repertoire, and the performance practice of, repertoire that's outside of the Western canon in addition to inside of the Western canon. So that's one of the things I think about as a conductor teacher and teacher of teachers and conductors. Is, how we're preparing them to be able to do the research and, support the performance of repertoire outside of the Western canon. So I often include, like I said, an array of repertoire. And then the other thing I think about programming too is making sure that that whatever repertoire I'm selecting is culturally valid, that's actually reflective of a particular culture that we're performing. That's easier to do with in the Western canon because a lot of that repertoire has been well researched. But that if we're picking music outside of the Western canon, that it's, reflective of a composer or arranger or editor who's, spent time in a particular area or has extensive knowledge, so that we're not performing repertoire that's a parody, but we're actually, investing in, learning about, where the repertoire comes from. And then I also really look carefully at texts. I think not only for are they like age appropriate in terms of, some of these, some of the content from like the French Renaissance can be a little bit risque. So making sure that like what those words mean and what all of those um idiosyncrasies and idiomatic phrases that we might not, that might not translate well, that at least we understand like what they might mean. But also looking at, the language that's being used in terms of from multiple perspectives and multiple viewpoints. So I think about that as well. So lots of different things are considered. And then, are there going to be pieces on there that the singers can enjoy like right away, that they're going to be able to hook into, versus a balance of repertoire that I like to call like a crock pot piece, something that takes a long time, a slow process of really being great, but then when it comes out, it's like amazing, but it takes time to get there. So I try to find a balance of those two pieces. Those two um, types of ways to hook into our singers. So it's a wide array of things. I don't think any one particular thing about programming, but I use sort of all of those as a guide.
Yeah, you gave a very thoughtful response there. Thank you for all of those different elements. And I think that's going to ring true for a lot of folks. And some of those are common answers that I get from a lot of the folks that I interview. But one of the things that I think you said at the very beginning was, starting with a piece and kind of building a program around that. A lot of people don't know how to start. Um, so I think that was a good point. Starting with a piece and then trying to build around that. Or if you're thinking themes, sometimes themes are harder because you have to find things that fit within the theme instead of programming the music, but that your ensemble needs. But yeah, all of those things that you said, as far as culturally valid, um, making sure you get music not just in the Western canon, but in the non-Western traditions as well. Non-parody music, I think that's a very important point. The non-parody music relationship to text. And I really liked what you were talking about with the French pieces, because you've got to be careful of even double entendre sometimes, and making sure that you know what they mean, but also that musically what's being referenced there, and is it age appropriate too. So all
Yeah,
great things.
absolutely. And there's also repertoire that, is more, text that's more could be not appropriate or offensive. And so I also want to say that too, not just, um, the risque texts that I reference, but just things that are, in today's day and age, we, wouldn't use certain phrases or pieces that were generated out of, difficult times. And so I just think that that's really important to be mindful of that as well when we're programming.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, great. So how would you describe then what a typical rehearsal might look like under your direction? And I know that all rehearsals are different, but what might someone see if they came into a regular weekday rehearsal at your university?
Great question. And so, I think about rehearsals as, being highly musical, um, and like high level artistry, but also that the process of learning the repertoire and um, exploring a piece and bringing it to life is also engaging and educational. And then, really importantly, I consider the ways in which we engage with each other and build community in rehearsal. And so I think about that in terms of I start every rehearsal with some sort of like, I welcome everybody, which I know that seems like, okay, well, we all welcome everybody, but I think that that's really important, like, especially in the context of places where singers are electing to be there, that it's an environment that we're glad to see them. And so I'll make sure to welcome everybody. And then I usually start with some sort of body warm up and breathing that helps us all get really centered and focused. Um, I find that especially helpful in times when there's a lot of, external anxiety or, students are coming in with reasonable distractions, we're like in the middle of the semester, it's midterms time or something, or, that we come in and just like ground ourselves and center. And then I go right into warm-ups, working on various vowels. I know, like every choir director, you're like, okay, Jen, yeah, we get it. We all work on vowels. But I try to focus on vowels that are going to be very common to a particular piece that we're singing, or building a vocal tone color that we're then going to apply into the piece of repertoire that we're doing, or building warm-ups that address some articulation or some phrasing that we're going to do, or incorporating warm-ups that address some element of diction that we're going to be exploring also in a particular piece. So I build the warm-ups based on what we're going to be doing in a piece. And then after I do warm-ups, we go right into, I ask the students to share something good that's going on. I learned this from Dr. Sandra Snow at Michigan State. She started a lot of her rehearsals this way. With the group that was then called the Women's Chamber Ensemble, that's no Mosaic. And she would just say, tell me something good. What's good that's going on? And so I do that similarly. And so I'll ask, students to say their name and something good that's going on so that everybody in the class is learning, their peers' names. That's like one of the best ways to get everybody engaged together, is that, you build a community where people know your name and they know something about you. So, and this is all volunteer, so we don't go down the line, it's not the say your name and something interesting about you, which is totally a reasonable thing to do. Um, but anyway, so I'll say, okay, name and something good. What are some good things? And I find now, I start actually every class off like that, not just choral ensembles, but also choral literature, conducting class, etc. Um, because I find that it gets the vibe up, that gets a high vibe, gets the energy up. People feel really good sharing. It's really fun to celebrate other people's successes, and it brings the energy up in the room. Um, and I also feel like as artists and just citizens of the world, that it's a really helpful and sort of important mindset to be celebrating everybody's successes, not just our own. I love the phrase rising tides lift all boats. And so I think it helps us to regularly be celebrating things that maybe somebody else has some success that we don't share, but we can still be excited for them, you know, because of whatever it is they're celebrating. And so students will share things that are, very deep to totally silly. I can't even think of any particular example, but it might be, a story about their cat, or they got a really great parking space, or they did really well on a particular exam, or, something along those lines, or they might be, saying they just got engaged, or it's up to them to share. And then we all sort of cheer, snap, clap, and, celebrate what they're doing. I find that that really helps us to get to know each other in the ensemble, and especially peer to peer, because you might find that somebody else enjoys something that you did or that you do, and then you can make friends that way. So it also helps create a risk-taking environment where students are free to take risks. And so I find, when the community is really strong, the sight reading is better, for example, because then, you sing a wrong note, it's just not that serious. You sing a wrong note, you move on. I mean, you address it and you correct it. So I think those kinds of things. And then I get into repertoire. I try to start each rehearsal with something that, if I can help it, that the singers have seen before or are comfortable, and I spend just a short time on that to build confidence in there, get everybody like making really healthy vocal sounds. And then I move into things that are, more difficult, that will be, require a lot of thinking, a lot of engagement. Um, I like to use neutral syllables a lot that are based on tone quality. Um, I've got a session that I talk about that. And then, get in there and really make music. I try to keep singers in their musical thinking, so that it's not, even as we're learning the music, it's not an arduous process, but that students are engaged and also empowered to make musical decisions. And then, as we're wrapping up rehearsal, I always want to make sure that we do a run through of a section, of a piece, of something that we've been working on that class, so people can see and hear the result of their work. You'll also see at varying points in time, I like to ask ensemble questions for them to be reflective on, the things that are happening. So I might say, what did we do really well just now? Or what did you notice that we did, in this particular section? Or if we did a movement exercise, what did you observe now that we did this movement exercise about a particular piece or about how we're singing? And the answer is, I couch this with, we're, kind and constructive, if that's, what we're talking about. So it's not like, well, the sopranos did. No. And I pick them because I am one. Um, and also I've got a killer soprano section right now. Um, but I share that because I think that that's really important too, that it's not that I try to use a lot of non-hierarchical rehearsal strategies, because ultimately these are all individual artists in their own right. And we want them to feel free to be artistic within the ensemble experience. So you'll also see lots of strategies like that. I know that was a long answer, but I love choral music and teaching and being in community. And so I could go on and on about, rehearsals. And I think that's where the magic happens. And then by the time we get to performance, it's like, I like the ensembles to be so prepared and comfortable with the music and the idea of risk taking, that performances are really expressive, and that singers aren't worried about, oh, am I going to be able to sing this correctly, or are we gonna? No, all of that inhibits artistry. So that's sort of what I think about.
Yeah, you said a lot there, and I've said this before on the podcast. But it's kind of selfish. I get these personal master classes from people that I talk to. So for the few people that listen, I hope they find a lot of value in what you just said, and I think they will. One of the things that I used to do a lot, and it was something, an offshoot of what you said, was that tell us something good that's going on. And I haven't done that in a while. And tonight at chorus rehearsal in about an hour, I'm going to do just that because you reminded me of it. So thank you for that. And then the other thing you were talking about, in the meat of the rehearsal, when we're really working on something and digging in, I call that cooking. We're really cooking. But at the end of the rehearsal, they need to taste. They need to taste a little bit of what they've been cooking. We may not get the full platter until the concert, but I really like what you said there. Starting out something with success, something successful, and then when you're cooking in the middle, and then at the end, make sure that they leave with a sense of joy. So yeah, really great masterclass, mini masterclass there. What is something that you would say to an emerging choral leader, pointers, tips, hacks, those sorts of things that could help them get the started on the right foot?
That's a great question. And this is not, I am often in positions where I'm mentoring emerging conductor teachers, or engaging with, really dynamite, seasoned conductor teachers. And I would say that w- I don't feel like there's any one particular thing, but I do feel like to have an open mindset about what it is that we do and not a fixed mindset. I think, being open to learning from everyone, um, regardless of, their previous experience or their degrees or their this or their that, like um, yes, it's really cool to have accomplishments and all of that, but we can learn from so many different scenarios. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of my current graduate students has this really cool technique that I love where um, she learned it from her mentor, Dr. Martha Shaw, who's an amazing conductor teacher in the Southeast, in Georgia. And it's to help consonants go really fast so that you're sustaining vowel. And she calls it flippy hand. And so she did this in her interview um, when she applied to school, and it was awesome. It worked great. And then I've watched her do it in some rehearsals. So I was with an honor choir recently in Wisconsin, and it was just the consonants were a little on the slow side in one particular piece. And I thought we really need the vowels to be like really elongated and the consonants happen faster. And so I tried a few things and I thought, I remember flippy hand. So they did it and it was great. And so I said to them, could I videotape this like just a second and send it to one of my graduate students who like taught me this exercise. So I sent it to her because it's like there's layers of teaching and learning and mentoring and mentoring up, and then also learning from those who, I mean, from all over. And so I think, be open to just observing without judgment, things that are happening around us. Everybody has something good to offer. I love sitting in on other choir directors' rehearsals because I find that, I learn things from them. It makes me consider like, okay, how might I approach that? Well, they did it in a different way. Oh, I hear something different in the sound. So I learn different strategies that way. Um, but also doing it through a non-judgmental lens is really, I think, so important to individual learning. And it also models that for our students, that it's not like, we're in an art. Like, yes, singing the correct pitches and the correct rhythms are like right. But most of the things, that we do in terms of our artistry, it's not like a binary right or wrong, like, well, they didn't shape that phrase correctly. Like, okay, there are cues and indicators in the music that would say, the phrase should be shaped this way or leaning some way or another. But that there should be some freedom to make some choices, and also that it's just not that serious. Like I I say this, I feel like especially when I'm new to ensembles or in honor choirs, like, you know, if you sing a wrong note, like nothing bad happens. Like it's just not that serious. Like no kittens are at risk, no puppies are in danger. It's just not that serious of a thing. So take the lead. Like sight read, and if you sing a wrong note, like then we'll correct it the next time. And so I think about that too in terms of the artistry. I'll ask ensembles like, okay, will you take a look at the phrase? Will you sing into the high point of the phrase? Where do you see that? Or will you use your hand to sing into the high point of the phrase? Things that encourage our singers to get off of the page um, and make artistic choices, I find really help engage and invigorate rehearsals so that they go after the pitch and rhythm reading with a lot of like vigor and excitement and can't wait until the piece unfolds. So I think about all of those kinds of things. I know it was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, there's not any one thing. It's just being open to learning and exploring, and that there's a lot of competition also, I think, not just in the arts and in teaching and music and all of that, but in the world. And so if we can create spaces where um, we can all be, rowing the boat together, and it's not about like a win or something, even though I know I made a sports ball reference earlier. Um, but anyway, so I think about those kinds of things that, staying grounded in why we went into music and just being open to all of the things.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, it's got to be a collaborative effort. It's not a, or it's not a contest. Maybe the only contest is within yourself. But otherwise, I just had a question. If you could, because I'm gonna steal if I can. Can you demonstrate an example of the flippy hand?
Yeah, so um
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no, that's okay. I'm thinking of like a particular piece that I could use. Let me look at my folder really fast.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
S-
And while you're doing that, the other thing that I found really compelling about what you said is, and I have to remind myself of this too. So many things out there are competing for your attention, and
yeah.
um, it's just not that serious. I love that. And nothing bad's going to happen if you sing a wrong note.
Yeah.
You know, that's a reminder that we all need, and we need as conductors too, because we're kind of on that anxiety spectrum to a lot of us, and with imposter syndrome and all those things that we talk about in the profession. And you know, it goes along the same lines as there are no emergencies in choral music, and um, don't be so hard on yourself. Make
Yeah.
mistakes freely. Recognize you're making mistakes, and then do your best to correct them, and know that we all make them.
Yeah. Exactly. So, one of the things that we're working on in our Choral Union, which is our, as I learned to say in the South, town and gown group, the group that is, students and community members together, is Neil Ginsburg arrangement of the Hebrew folk song Hine Matov. So, in that particular piece, there's a lot of syllabic settings. So, Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. And so if you were working with an ensemble and they were elongating the consonants, Hine matov u'manayim shevet, sort of slow consonants, what you would do is take your hand and you would, every time you sing a consonant, you would flip your hand back and forth so that you did it really quickly. Hine matov u'manayim shevtachim gam yachad. So that's how I understand it, and I've watched it be really effective.
Oh, thanks for demonstrating. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense now that I can see it visually. I'm kind of a visual learner myself, so I love that. Thank you. Okay, so what this kind of goes along the same line as emerging choral leader, but maybe not. It can be just general life advice that you would give to yourself with all the knowledge and skill you have now. Looking back at your 16-year-old self, if you could take a time machine back, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
That's a great question. I think I think I would say I would encourage myself to live in the moment more. Um, and I also think I would encourage myself to like lean into those, and I did this, but I think even more into like those musical skills. Um, that all of that, all of the musical experiences I had, like prior to college and also in undergrad, were super valuable to me. They're things that I use every day, the musicianship, all of that, and to just enjoy that process of learning, scales and things like that. I say this because I also played clarinet a long time, and so I just remember like, oh my gosh, scales. Like, or when I was, doing piano and it's like scales in like 900 different ways and Hanons and all of that stuff. Um, and I didn't always enjoy that process of like learning those things. And I think trying to find ways to make even the things that require like hours of practice or or engagement in that way, learning to make those things fun and enjoying that process of building skills, that it's not only about, the end goal, that it's really important to enjoy the journey. I teach in a way that's really reflective of that philosophy. But I think, as a teenager, that, there were opportunities for that to be less like, okay, well, now I have to practice, blah, blah, blah. But to really like lean into that as like joyful and to appreciate like the little successes that you have along the way. Like, oh, I couldn't play this excerpt before, but now I can. So that's really fun. Like things like that. That's what I would advise. And that's what I mean, I really try to model that for students. And I think my, philosophy of rehearsing reflects that too.
Yeah, I think you gave great advice there. Now on the flip side of that, and this might be hard, but in your 90-year-old self, looking back at where you are right now, what advice do you think your 90-year-old self would give you right now?
I think we're in such a beautiful field where we get to engage with people on like these really deep levels and share in artistry that I feel like, we're so fortunate to be able to do, or, even thinking about it through the lens of teaching, not even in the artistry, like to be a positive role model for folks and, um, create opportunities to develop leaders and to help people build confidence and social skills and all kinds of things. And I think really I do this a lot. I'm an extroverted extrovert and I love people. And so I would say in the last 10 years or so, I've really worked so hard and prioritized in my own life, like relationships, interpersonal relationships, because that to me is like the key of like joyful living and being in the moment and all of that. And I think that I will probably never feel like I've met too many people or that I've had too much fun with friends or things like that. Like I think I would even in my 90s, even though enjoy like all of the social experiences that I have in terms of, in my personal life or socializing at school or just in generally interacting with folks, singers, students, all of that. But I think I'll never feel like it was that I spent too much time being in relationship and being in community with folks. I mean, I just think that that's really important, and I think that's also really important, um, in places of where we might be feeling burnt out or missing some joy. Like I remember somebody telling me once, like, try to turn the things that you do every day into joyful experiences. Like, try to enjoy that process. Like, even going to the grocery store or like, getting gas or whatever, doing your, having a commute. I mean, I think about this regularly. So I'm always, I mean, when I commute, I'm on the phone talking to a friend or catching up or, talking to a colleague about, something that's happening, but I'm using that time to be engaged with folks. And even if we feel tired, that we're still prioritizing connecting with other people in some way. So I also try to plan something at least once or twice a week that like I'm looking forward to, whether that's like co-working with somebody at a coffee shop or going and doing something fun. I love escape rooms. If anybody loves escape rooms, I'm like here for all of that. If you don't know what escape room is, it's not scary. It's really fun. It's like you're in a 4D logic puzzle. Um, but anyway, I just really try to prioritize being in community with folks. And I think that, yeah, like I said, my 90-year-old self is going to be like, I wish you spent more time with people. And it's like, I'm with people all the time and I just love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, off of all that, I have to say, number one, thank you, because I consider myself probably a slightly extroverted introvert. Because we have to be somewhat extroverted be in front of people for what we do as a job. Um, but in my own personal heart, I feel pretty introverted. So when I met you last conference, you were very helpful in your extroversion to lead me through talking and getting to know you a little better. So I appreciate that, and um, I think anybody that interacts with you would say that's a valuable part of your personality, and I love that. Um, and the other thing I think is just the whole relationships thing is so important that at the end of the day, when we're old and gray and we're heading towards the grave, the music may be memorable, but it it just and I mean this with all respect, it doesn't matter. What matters is the relationships that you have with people and how you made them feel and how maybe how you came together in collaboration through the music, and we can use the music as a vehicle. But yeah, what you said there is so important, I think. And if there's any advice that I think we can all take away from this conversation is that the most important part of what we do is the relationships. Awesome, awesome.
Totally agree.
Okay, what are you work when you're working on like a passion project? You're in the zone. You've got your blinders on. What does that look like for you? It looks a little bit different for everybody, but what about you?
That's a great question. I'm somebody who likes to work in different places. So I don't mean like, spend a few hours here, a few hours there. So I like to work in my office, or I like to work in multiple places at home or in different coffee shops. Like I like to have different sort of, um, I don't know, different scenery. And sometimes I need to be in really quiet zones. And sometimes I like to be in places where there's not like crazy activity, but there's, you know, I don't know, there's animation and life around me. Sometimes I find that that's really helpful. So it looks really different. I really try to prioritize the things that require a lot of like brain power, writing, thinking. I mean, you're like, obviously we're thinking, but like really heavy thinking to times of the day that I where that's easier to me. I'm not a night person, and so like if I save, writing program notes or something until, 11:30 p.m., it's much more difficult for me versus like at 10 o'clock in the morning when I've had my coffee and I'm ready to go. And so I try to space out the work that I need to do to match when I'm, most productive or less productive, et cetera. So that's been a strategy for me that I've found to be really helpful. I try to do the things that require the most, like I said, the most brain function at times where it's, easiest to do. And then the things, like when I need to number music or something, I'll do that, late at night watching a television show. Like when I do really in-depth score study, then I need to be, at the piano and going. But there are things that I find to be really helpful to do at, other points in time, marking my score, things like that, circling a forte. I have a score marking system that I use. Um, and I do those at times when I know that, it can be a joyful experience and not something that I have to do, when I'm feeling tired or things like that. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but I find that to be pretty helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that could be a good model for folks. This next question is also sort of selfish because I ask it in with the intent of trying to get onto new folks and follow them and get to know them and their work and see what they're up to and what can I steal from them because we're all little thieves for our rehearsals. But in thinking in terms of like a WWE wrestling match, 4-person tag team, who are 3 other people that you'd like in your corner that you can tag in?
That's a really good question. And I imagine a lot of people would pick this category of folks too, but I think my mentors are folks that I would love to tag in. And that's something too. I'll answer that question, but um, find yourself a mentor, somebody that you respect and look up to. And I remember when I was teaching high school, especially, I would just go to, concerts at area schools and ask questions and go to coffee with other directors and learn what they're doing and, build a relationship so that, one, it was building community, but also, learning from them. And so I'm really, really fortunate to have incredible mentors. So I think it would be them. I think it would be Jan, and this is in no particular order, but Janet Galvan, Sandra Snow, and David Rail. I would say if it was a four-person team that I was also on, that's who I would bring because I just admire them all so much, and they're incredible artists, teachers, musicians, all of it. Um, but they're also incredibly generous humans and care so deeply about their students. And those were my models um, growing up in the choral profession. So yeah, oh my gosh, any of them. I mean, they still serve as like mentors to me.
Well, mentors to many, I think, even by extension, even if they didn't study with those folks or, consider them direct mentors. There's a lot of their work and they're just choral giants.
Yeah.
So yeah, great choices there. Um, okay, so we talked a little bit about, setting up your space for when you're in a passion project and you're in the zone. What do you do when you relax? What do you do when you get too burned out? How do you decompress?
I socialize. I go plan to do something fun with somebody, or even if it's not something that's like, oh, let's do this day-long excursion. Even if it's like, okay, do you want to sit somewhere like at one of our places and watch, a couple of shows or a movie or something that's super chill. Um, but I really find that I unwind in community. And so I'll do things like that or read. Um, I like to do puzzles, which seems like kind of silly, but um, anyway, I think like those kinds of things or spend time with family, all of that.
Yeah. The extra connection with folks kind of your answer gave me a little anxiety. I was like, oh no, that's that's why uh different ideas for different people, right? And and that works for you. For me, I have to be completely unplugged. I'm done peopling for the day, as I say. Uh, but yeah, but like I said, I'm more of that extroverted introvert, and you're that extrovert. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
totally.
That's
And
awesome.
there's also folks that I feel like like many people could find who are like, when you are with them, it's just relaxing.
Mhm.
They're calming, you're calm. It's like, I don't know.
Well, I'll say this: the
Yeah.
last time we sat down, you made me feel that way. So, even though there was a lot going on in the room at the time, and there was a lot of people, and I was kind of at the end of the day done peopling, you made me feel really at ease, and so it's kind of sometimes good to have that dichotomy when you're interacting with folks, the introvert versus the extrovert, and so you made me feel really comfortable there. So thank you, and again, thank you for that conversation. I really
That
enjoyed
was,
talking with
that
you.
was really fun.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going on a personal tangent there. Who is another choral musician that you would like to lift up? Maybe one that you think doesn't get as much attention as they deserve.
That's a really great question. I feel like I don't know. It's like how to choose. Um, I'll say two, because I think that, yeah, I think they are awesome. Um, and that's Meredith Bowen, who's at Radford University. She's incredible, an incredible talent, super intellectual, really kind, an amazing musician. Um, and oh, who's my other one? Well, yes, here's another one too. Erin Plisco is an incredible musician. I just watched her ensemble sing at the Missouri Music Educators Association conference. And every time I've heard her ensemble sing, I mean, they just sing with such heart and enthusiasm and attention to expression, in addition to all of the musical nuances. I think both of these women are incredible, and yeah, just think they're amazing. And so I think, that I don't know. I love them. They're awesome. But I mean, the list of people who are awesome is so long, which
Yeah,
is
you could go on forever
cool.
listing
I know,
folks.
I feel like that too. It's like, how do you choose? But anyway, those are two that were off the top of my head.
Well, yeah, great choices. And I know Meredith. I haven't seen a lot, maybe online here and there for her choirs, but I've seen Erin's choirs a lot in conferences, in our region. And yeah, top-notch musician and just great person. So great choices. Okay, I have this little Accelerando round. If you're willing to play with me,
Great.
this is one of those kind of quick fire questions.
Let's
Don't think
do
too
it.
hard about it. What's the worst job you ever had outside of choral music?
I don't think I had a worse job. I tend to be somebody who I find joy in like all kinds of things. So I used
I
to
can see
actually,
that. I can see
I
that.
know,
That's awesome.
I don't know. I used to work in hospitals, but I liked that. I mean, I did that like in some entry level positions, and I don't know, I really liked that too. I don't think I had a worse job. I don't think I would have taken a job that I knew I wasn't going to like. Like there are elements of it. Most every job that I've had has been in some sort of like people institution. And so, whether in the hospital systems or in teaching, in a variety of levels. Um, yeah, I don't think I've had one.
Yeah, that's a fair answer, and especially because you're such a people person that that resonates with anything that you do. So very cool. Okay, what's your guilty pleasure junk food to eat?
I don't think I have one, but like most things at Trader Joe's, I feel like
Oh
that
yeah,
store
okay.
is so fun. Yeah, you just walk down the aisles and you're like, I never thought of combining these things. And then somehow they fall in the cart and you're like, well, here we are. So I think, yeah, I don't, not any one particular thing, but that store is so fun.
Trader Joe's, got it. Okay, if you could do any other job besides being a musician, or if you had to do a job besides being a musician of some kind, what would that look like? What would that be?
That's a great question. I think maybe in maybe healthcare, human resources, or um, maybe marketing. I've always been really interested in um, I don't know, in engaging with large groups of folks, and so that might be something. Yeah, I mean, I'm answering this question as if I wasn't, not in music, but like I could also be teaching in another content area. I mean, I can't really imagine that, but I do love teaching. So maybe corporate training, like I think those
Mm,
kinds of things would be, I don't know.
yeah,
Nothing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna continue to teach music and I'm so happy to do that.
right.
But yeah,
Well,
I think those kinds of
you're a
things.
teacher at heart, right? So anything you do, you're a teacher. Okay. What is a TV or movie or say TV, a TV show or a movie that you think everybody should watch at least once?
Oh, Schitt's Creek, hands down.
Common
Such
answer.
a
Yeah,
show.
it's
Such
funny.
a good show. It's one of those that like you can watch it over and over again and it just is so good. That's actually one like when I'm on the road traveling for work things that while I'm getting ready, I'll put on the background because it's like I don't know, it's just such a feel good show and it's silly and yeah, that show. Hands
That's
down.
great. That's
No other.
great. Yeah, it's a great show too. Uh, okay, so you have a choice here of either what was the scariest moment in your life, or what is your biggest phobia now?
I don't know about a phobe. I don't love heights.
Okay,
I
that's one.
think that's I think that's probably one. Yeah, I mean, I used to do like rock wall climbing and like those kinds of little obstacle courses and things. Like as a teen, I loved it. But like, no, no, that's done.
Okay, okay, great. What is something you spend way too much money on?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. What is a secret talent that most people might be surprised to learn about you?
I think that I was in color guard and marching band, that
Oh,
activity for a long time. And that I and winter guard and all of that and taught that for a number of years. Um and did choreography. I think that's something that people don't expect. But I think makes
so you know your way around a flag or a rifle or yeah.
yes,
Okay,
I
great.
do. I do. And I loved those activities when I was in them. Yeah, and like I said, I've done a lot of teaching. And I actually think the like dance movement background has been really helpful um in conducting gesture. I think it's been helpful to me not only like as an artist, but also when I was especially when I was a student. So that's something that, I think about too, like that with conducting, it's not only like what's happening musically, but there's all and are you clear, et cetera, but just the coordination of being able to change your movements and things. I think having any kind of movement, dance, any kind of background like that, or even training now is really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, yeah, dance, any kind of movement art. Eh, for me, it was like Tai Chi, Kung Fu,
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu, color guard, yeah, any kind of movement art, I think helps in the conducting art for sure. What's the oldest thing in your fridge?
I don't know. It's got to be some kind of condiment, but I don't keep expired things. So soy
Mm,
sauce, I don't know.
okay.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
most people say condiments. I'm looking for that one person that has the moldy lasagna in their fridge.
Oh, yeah. That's not me.
Right, great. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Maybe healing?
Oh, okay, yeah, I love that, and especially with your answer about healthcare. I can see
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I kind of feel like we get an opportunity to like, I don't mean like we heal people through music. I don't mean it that, you know, um, in that way, but I think that there's an element of emotional expression that we get to, engage with, I don't know, and provide out an outlet in that way. And so,
Well, I do think there's something to that. I think there's something to the healing of people's hearts and souls, and we do a lot of that through music. That's what's his name? Carl Palnick's address to the Boston
yeah,
Conservatory. Folks, I
yeah.
think a lot of folks have read that by now, and he mentions that in some way or shape or form in that speech as well. So I think you're onto something there. Okay, so what is a message that you might have on a billboard for thousands to see? It can be a short phrase or a single word, or what's something that you would put on a billboard?
We're doing it.
We're
I
doing it.
That's something that I say like um and I don't mean like we're doing it. I mean in is a community like okay, we're doing it. We've got this. Like in that kind of spirit. Um I find myself saying that all the time in so many contexts where that in the spirit of like okay, we got this. I usually say like okay, we're doing it. Um yeah, it's sort of like a let's go. Yeah, I think
I
that would
like that. Yeah, and you can use that in a lot of different contexts too. I think you can say it with different tones to your voice, and it can mean different things. So I like
yeah,
that one. You can read that in a different way. Okay, well, congratulations, you achieved tempo presto on that Accelerando round. So
thank
thanks for playing.
you.
All right, so you can be goals for 2025 or the academic year or whatever you choose here. But what are you most looking forward to? What are you working on that excites you?
That's a great question. So I'm in a position that's new to me and I'm very excited about all of the possibilities here. So in the immediate time, I'm really excited about recruiting. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And so continuing to grow the ensemble numbers here in terms of engaging more students across the campus, engaging more students in the undergraduate programs, getting the word out about our graduate conducting program here, um, building more connections with the community, I think it's all those kinds of things, building a life in Kansas City, which is an awesome place to visit. 10 out of 10 stars, highly recommend. 11 out of 10 stars, really. Um, so I think just like leaning into that. And I'm not someone who's like, okay, my rigid 5-year plan is X, Y, and Z. I'm really open to possibilities and things as they unfold. And I'm really excited about the possibilities here in this new position for engagement, not only in our community, but abroad.
Very cool. I love that. Well, I think this conversation is going to make all those who listen a little less apprehensive to approach you, to reach out to you, to seek your advice and counsel when it comes to repertoire and resource, but not just for the area that you're slated for Southwestern ACDA, but for all things. Because obviously you've thought about a lot of these things and you've lived with these in your experiences. So thanks for your time today. And where can people go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Sure. My information is on the UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City website. There, you're welcome to email me. I'm happy to put you in contact with other folks in our region, or abroad if you've got questions about, graduate school or conducting programs or things to consider as a young teacher or career advice or any of those kinds of things. If I can't answer the question, I'm so happy to put you in touch with folks that I think will be able to do that. Um, yeah, and I'm really looking forward to serving the region in this way.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for joining me and for letting folks get to know you a little bit better. And I hope to see you real soon. Connect again and get to pick your brain some more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye bye.